Hi everyone. Hey, in this series, I sit down and talk with Frances, our new farm manager. She's got a really great background, really great experience with seed saving. And we plan to grow some heritage grain wheat here on our farm here in Armada. We want to propagate the seed. We want to grow a healthier, more nutritious flour to make our pie crust with. So if you want to join us in this little project that we're starting up this summer, please let me hear about it in the comments below. If you're a baker and you want to experiment with some of our new flour that we're growing, if you have a garden and you want to help to propagate this seed, that'd be really great. We want to hear it from you. This is a grassroots effort. Achatz Pies want to make a healthier pie crust. We want to make healthier baked goods for our community. So we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and I think you'll really enjoy what Frances and I talk about here in this series. Now, some of you guys have been confused about what I've been talking about over the last couple of months. But if you've been following me for the last 2 years, you know that I talk a lot about agriculture and farming, and I feel that we're so very closely connected to that, right? Because I'm a food manufacturer. And so as we make pies for you, Dave and I are dedicated to finding the best ingredients, the highest quality, and properly grown and fair pricing for farmers. We're all about supporting the local farmers and helping them to conserve our topsoil and retain water in the topsoil, sequester carbon, the whole bit. And of course, proper humanely treated animals for all of the eggs and the chicken and things that we use there. So that has been a big mission for Dave and I. And we have tried to dabble in it a little bit just by ourselves. We have a big farm. We grow a lot of things for our family organically. As you have seen in my past videos, the farm here that I have at home, we call it our research and development farm. So I am trying to understand how to raise animals humanely. So I've got 70 plus chickens out here in my yard. You guys have seen my mobile chicken coop, so we're rotating the chickens around the yard. One of the biggest things that we thought we could do is grow nutritional wheat. What we use now is it's a hybrid wheat. It's not very nutritious. It is flavorless. So we met Frances. Frances applied for our farm manager position, and we are so excited. She is overqualified and she has a wonderful background in saving seeds. And she also works for the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance. So here's Frances. I'm going to give her the camera here to talk a little bit about herself and her background and everything that she knows and how she plans to help Achatz Pie Company with this wheat project. Hey, Frances.
Hello. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Yeah, so when I first met Wendy and Dave, I thought I was applying to be just a regular old farm manager, growing some annual vegetables and providing organically raised food to the family and to the community here in Armada, Michigan. But after having some conversations, we realized that this partnership could really be a lot bigger and we could meet a need in the community for really nutritious staple food crops, wheat being the one that we're going to focus on first. So we have the Phenomenal Farm, which is the nonprofit farm behind the Armada Pie Shop that I've been working hard on cleaning up and getting to be very productive for subsistence farming and to also use as a place for the community to come and learn how to grow food, learn how to save seeds, try different growing practices, grow unique varieties of things. But I think what's most interesting is this kind of larger picture, this larger vision that we share, providing regeneratively grown staple food crops to the community and integrating it into the Achatz Handmade Pie Company. So we're first starting with some grain trials, growing ancient and heritage grain varieties at a very small scale. Some we're only going to be starting with 100 seeds, some will be starting with only about 40 seeds, but each one seed can give up to 500 seeds from the harvest of the one plant. So it won't take very many years before we have a larger scale seed stock of these ancient and heritage grains that we can grow at a larger scale to play with in bread baking and pie crust baking, and then hopefully build some relationships with the farmers nearby who are growing conventionally corn and soy, and hopefully inspire a regenerative movement around staple food crops, specifically the wheat, maybe some dry beans, maybe some potatoes, because Dave loves his potatoes. I'll just throw a fact in there. A majority of our calories, like 70% of our calories, comes from staple food crops. So we think corn, we think wheat, we think soy. And the modern wheat varieties are very, very shallow root. So Wendy mentioned that soil health is very important to her and her husband, and the sustainability of the business, sustainability of the whole world. And a lot of our hybrid modern wheat varieties have a very small root system, and these ancient and heritage varieties have a much stronger root system that can tap deeper into the soil, building soil, mine more minerals out of the earth, which makes for a more nutritious grain, which makes for a more flavorful pie crust or a more flavorful bread or pasta or in any kind of grain dish that you prepare. When we met and I was being interviewed to be the farm manager, little did we know that we would have so much in common and kind of share the same vision for a regional food system that's centered around regeneratively grown ancient and heritage grains.
Right. We looked at your resume and Ariel's like, oh my God, I think we found the right person, overqualified just to kind of help Dave pull weeds out of the potato patch, It's like, oh, finally. And I've been thinking about, I bake bread, and we've done some YouTube videos where I show you how I'm grinding some wheat at home, and it was Einkorn wheat, just researching wheat and trying to make bread to feed my family a healthier bread, started to learn. And some of the books I had met Chef Chad Robertson here, who owns Tartine Bakery there in San Francisco. We talked about him earlier. Mm-hmm. And you said the mill, he probably wrote about it here in his book, the mill that provides Chef Robertson is located in Oregon, you said?
It's called Cairnspring Mill. I believe it's either in Southern Oregon or Washington. But Cairnspring Mill, they build relationships with farmers in the area and ensure that the flour that they're receiving from the farm first is nutritious and is grown in ecologically sound farming practices. They're not compromising the soil health. They're not compromising the seed quality. They're ensuring that the waterways are remaining clean, so there's very little chemical, if any chemical, being put on the grain fields. And that's just a very small mill that supplies a few bakers who are willing to recognize the true value in purchasing quality grains and quality materials for their food items.
Right. I think we've gotten so used to white bread using white flour. That's basically the endosperm.
Yeah.
And there's no nutrition. And so then the flour mills have to purchase more chemicals and inputs to spray vitamins and minerals back onto white flour. It just is mind-boggling when you follow that system. And when did it start? Back in the, 20s or 30s. And it just seemed like human health started to decline when our bread became less and less nutritious. Mm-hmm. And I think you talked about the root system just being 4 inches deep, that's pretty weak stuff. And it's so important that the root system does go down and tap into those micronutrients. Mm-hmm. The human, the healthier our crops are, the healthy we are, the healthier our animals are, and just overall health and wellness, we can't subsist on PKN, right? So that's what the farmers spray on the empty, dead dirt. I don't even want to call it soil, because some of the soil that's on my farm behind, on Armada Center Road, we have a 10.5 acre farm there, and that back 7 acres has been laying fallow for probably about 5 or 6 years, and it's just covered in super weeds right now. And I'll walk back there and it's just like very pale dirt, and it's cracked, and it looks like, like clay pan. It's just crackly, and it looks like empty and dead. It looks like Mars or something, like Mars, right? Yeah. Like you're walking around on this weed patch. And of course, we've had a ton of rain right now, so I'm sure that a lot of it has washed off into the county ditch. So how do we go about building back that soil before we even want to put a wheat seed in there? This is a huge process that we need to figure out, and I think you've got a good plan.
Wheat and a lot of grains are used as a soil builder because of their tendency to grow really deep root systems, and because post-harvest a lot of the stalk stays on the field, and so that's also a soil builder. As it decomposes, it starts to feed the microbes in the soil. Growing wheat as both a soil builder and as a potential profit or as a potential food item is kind of a win-win. The soil that you were speaking of at the 7 acres at your farm, we're waiting to get the soil test results back. I imagine that it's going to need a lot, but that's where cover cropping and crop rotations come in. We're hoping to establish 3 or 4 different plot systems on that 7-acre parcel that are all on a different crop rotation. So we'll be doing wheats, we'll be doing legumes, veg, and then we'll also probably be doing one fallow year just to kind of see what's coming up. So the weeds and things that are growing on the soil now, those are just messages to us to say what's imbalanced in the soil. Like, why is this weed growing so intensely here? Why is there nothing growing here, or whatever. So over time, we'll be able to figure out first what the soil needs, and then build a relationship with the land through doing these crop rotations that allow us to get really wonderful food off of the soil, off of the land, as well as restoring the nutrients and building life and building soil in that landscape.
I hate going to the negative, but I talk about that piece of land. I know my mom and dad had about 50 acres there in the past, and they had sold some off, and they retained their 10.5 acres there. And, she had sheep and chickens and animals, and a cow, really healthy to have the hooves on the soil. And I know that's going to be a big part of soil health, is having hooves or chickens poop on the soil. Hundreds of years ago, we had the buffalo coming through here now, and we don't have that anymore. And we've just relied on big ag to sell us chemicals to put on our soil instead of naturally feeding that soil. I think of that soil, and people are wondering, why is it unhealthy? And it's unhealthy because I feel it's been sprayed with herbicides and pesticides, fungicides, all manner of chemicals, and it has killed the natural biology in the soil. I'm just curious of how many shovelfuls will we have to dig before we even find one earthworm out there, I'm just thinking of the biology and of the nematodes and the microarthropods and all manner of bacteria and the mycorrhizal fungi. Where is it? I just think it's just a dead, crusty dirt out there, and I'm just so sad about it. I just want to pile like a foot of leaves and wood chips out there and just let it start, and horse manure and everything like we did there behind the pie shop. We've got truckloads of
lots of leaves, lots of mulch, lots of straw from the chicken coop. Nature is the definition of resilience. Nature is able to restore itself much faster than we're able to kill it. We're kind of flirting with that threshold right now, but it really, really will not take long to build back healthy soil to produce beautiful food there.
I hope so. I hope we can find more young people like you, Frances, that have this mission to farm properly, to bring health to people in our community. We started building that soil over there behind the pie shop, and so we talked with the Armada DPW, Dave Wagner here, and we used to just go behind the DPW building, and we'd take the pickup truck and we'd just shovel loads of all of the composted leaves and the wood chips. And finally one day I said, Dave, why don't you just, can you just dump those leaves and wood chips behind the pie shop here? Just dump them out there where the apple trees used to be. And that orchard was 10 acres. We had 650 apple trees, and we farmed those trees for many years. But you would not believe the harsh, heavy, toxic, poisonous chemicals that are used in apple orchards. To keep the pests, especially when you have a huge monoculture of just apples out there. It's really easy for the pests to come in and unlock everything and just, start, wreaking havoc. And these terrible toxic chemicals were being sprayed back there. So eventually we just said, I said to my husband, and he would get bloody noses and he would handle these chemicals, and he never gets bloody noses. So there was other signs that he was being exposed. And we worked with MSU. They would put little bug traps out there in the orchard and tell us what we should be spraying and what we shouldn't be spraying. We don't want to kill off the beneficial insects that were out there. So we were paying for professionals to come and help us to figure out how to handle these chemicals. But they were still, wreaking problems with my husband's health, and we decided to just let the orchard go. We just stopped farming it. We just let it go to pot. So a lot of the trees are overgrown. They're, broken in half. They've just really gone to pot. So I look forward to one day possibly bringing back that orchard too and knocking down some of the old ones. But in the meantime, back to Dave Wagner dumping off all those leaves and wood chips. It was such a beautiful thing. And we have built that topsoil back there. I mean, it's thick and it's deep.
It's incredible. There's so many earthworms when I go digging in there.
It's just a breeding ground for earthworms. And I tell you, the potatoes that Dave grew last year were so flavorful and tasty. I couldn't believe that I would get that excited about a potato, but it was really, really tasty. It's unbelievable how tasty it was.
Yep.
We raised our children vegetarian for like 15 years. And we ate a lot of really healthy brown rice and beans and, organic fruits and vegetables and a lot of smoothies and just a lot of good healthy food. But now I'm not a vegetarian anymore, and I'm eating grass-fed beef from our Amish farmer who is pasture-centric, and he doesn't feed the cows even like GMO alfalfa even. So he's very, very conscious of what he's doing. I have visited the farm, so we're eating grass-fed beef and Dave's potatoes. I'm like, oh my God, what a
full circle.
A full circle, but it's healthy grass-fed beef that's not feedlot beef, eating GMO corn, which is so destructive for the health of the cow and their soil gut biology, and just like crappy potatoes that are grown in dirt, not soil. So I'm really happy that the farm there is wonderful soil, and we've had all this rain and it's soaking in over there. It's like a sponge.
No, we've definitely been taking advantage of all the mulch and all of the leaves from the Public Works Department here in Armada. Before we were able to move all of that stuff and build the rows in the farm, there were some really wet pockets. There were some miniature ponds in some of the low parts of the farm. And just this past week, we got a bunch of rain. And there's still a few really wet areas, but for the most part, all of the mulch and all of the leaves is just totally drinking it up, and the plants are just loving it because the moisture is able to be retained. So as the plants need to drink, there's water available just because the soil is holding moisture. But you bring up a really good point about how good Dave's potatoes tasted. And that's because the soil is so rich. The soil is just loaded with a bunch of vitamins and minerals and bugs and all kinds of good stuff.
Nutrient cycling organisms.
Exactly. And, when you're eating a pepper or when you're eating bread or when you're eating meat or when you're eating a potato, you're eating that plant or you're eating that animal. But beyond that, you're eating what that animal or what that plant was able to mine from the soil, what that plant or animal was eating. And so when we go back to when you're eating your grass-fed beef, what kind of grass are the animals eating? And what kind of soil is the grass being grown in? And so it always comes back to building soil health. If we have dead soils, we have erosion, we have polluted waterways, and we have, almost sterile microbiomes and a very fragile immune system, both as in a human body term and then as an earth body context as well. So just building soil is one of the most important thing. I can't stress it enough because that is where our food system really starts and ends.
Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. And Francis and I have a lot more to talk about. So on your way out, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and we'll see you next week. Bye.